Hello friends, in the last session, we saw how sociology is emerging as a discipline. What was the kind of society, what were some of the features of the European society before the emergence of sociology, and then how in 17th and 18th century, because of Industrial Revolution, because of French Revolution, because of Enlightenment, how things are changing. And gradually, the discipline of sociology is emerging. For the first time, this word sociology was used by Auguste Comte in 1830 and 1840, that period of time. So we have learned this thing. In this session, we'll understand what is the scope of sociology. Now this becomes important because, see, it's a new discipline now. And there will be debates. There will be people who will be saying, see, what you are doing, I'm also doing the same thing. A historian will say, see, what you are studying, I also study the same. I also study society. Historian will also say the same. Political scientists will also say the same. Who's studying economics will also say the same thing. So how is sociology different? What is the scope of sociology? That we should know. So first what we'll do, we'll understand the scope of sociology. And in the next session, we will discuss how sociology is different from other disciplines, other social sciences. That is what we're going to do. So in this session, focus on scope of sociology. Now, before we proceed into the topic, I would like you to read these statements. The statement that you can see on the screen. As you can see on the screen, there is one statement. Since sociology is so elastic a science, it is difficult to determine just where its boundary begin and end. You don't know what is the boundary here. When sociology becomes social psychology, and where social psychology becomes sociology, where economic theory becomes sociological doctrine, or where biological theory becomes sociological theory, it is something which is impossible to decide. That means you're not very sure of the boundaries. What is the extent of sociology? You can easily cross the boundaries. The boundaries might be diluted, blurred. So it basically reflects to the problem that we're trying to seek here. We're trying to solve here. What is the scope? What is the extent of sociology? Now, if you look at sociology, the scope is extremely wide. Sociology can seek to understand the relationship, the interaction between individuals. And that too between strangers. It can also try to understand relations, interactions between people within the family, between households, between other institutions. At the same time, it can try to understand relations between countries, between states, between nations. It can happen. It also tries to understand sometimes the national issues. For example, issues of unemployment, poverty. All those things can also be put under the sociological lens. So interactions, national issues, international issues, all these things can be studied under sociology, under the different theories given by different sociologists. Also another thing, another way also you can differentiate is, it is defined not just by what it studies, but how it studies. That way also things can vary. So you might study the same discipline, same area, but for that also you can use different approaches. For example, if I'm, let's say, studying a village, I can study the village from multiple perspectives. I can study it from conflict perspective, I can study it from functionalist perspective. So different methods can be there to study the same village. And since sociology is not very old, sociology emerged post-Industrial Revolution, French Revolution. First time this term sociology was used in 1840. So it has not even completed 2 centuries. So since it is a relatively younger discipline, the subject matter of sociology, the methods that will be used in sociology, the scope of sociology, the scope of discipline, it has also not become exactly concrete now. So again, it is a matter of debate. So we need to understand what are the ongoing debates related to the scope of sociology. Now, if you look at it, there are basically 2 schools of thought. What kind of discipline or what should be its scope? One school is called the formal school. Another school is called the synthetic school. Now, formal school, it says that sociology should be a science which should have a specifically defined field. It should study something which is very specific, some niche area it should study. And it has thinkers like Simmel, Weber, Tönnies, Wehrkant, and Leopold von Wisse. So it should have a certain specific area, certain specifically defined field which it needs to study. According to the synthetic school, they want sociology a synthesis of general sciences. They want coordination among all social sciences. From that you can form one field which is sociology. So synthesis, combination, coordination of social sciences which can lead to formation of one general science. That general science can be sociology. And those who are advocates of the synthetic school, synthesis of multiple social sciences to form a general science, they are Durkheim, Ginsburg, Sorokin, and Hobhouse. What we will do is, we will look at both these schools a little in detail, and we will also look at some of their criticism. This school, the formal school, it is also referred to as the specialist school. And according to the school, they want to have a distinct discipline, a distinct subject matter for sociology. And most of them have emphasized that we need to study the forms of social relationship. What do we mean by forms of social relationship? So here again, there are 2 things. We need to understand form and content. See, things that you see around, for example, let's say you're looking at human faces. Now, every human face is different from one another. But if you look at it, all the faces will have something in common. They will have some hair, they will have some 2 eyes, they will have 2 ears, they will have a nose, there will be 2 lips. This is form. Every human face, more or less, will have this thing. Some might not have a hair, or some might have lost an eye. There might be some disability, but on an average, every human face, more or less, will have this thing. Some might not have a hair, or some might have lost an eye. There might be some disability, but on an average, this is the form of a human face. But everyone's face is different. Someone might have a sharper nose, someone might have smaller eyes. So the color of the face might be different. So the content varies. The form remains the same. Similarly, if you look at social relationships, all the relationships will be different. The content will be different. But underlying that, there will be a form. We need to study that. For example, there's a couple. Okay, let's say the name of the couple is Ram and Sita. Now, there's another couple, let's say Mohan and Geeta. So both of them are husband and wife. Ram, Sita, their husband, wife. Mohan, Sita, they're also husband, wife. Now, their relationship might be different. The relationship that exists between Ram and Sita and the relationship between Mohan and Geeta, it might be different. Maybe Ram loves his wife more. Maybe Mohan does not love his wife that much. So those variations will be there. So this is nothing but the variation in content. But both of them are conjugal bonds. Bonds between husband and wife. So there will be similarity in that. Both are conjugal bonds. When husband and wife are there, they will have certain responsibility towards each other. So they should ideally be performing certain functions for each other. So the form of relationship is same, but the content is varying. All social relationships will have some form, similar form. So they are saying you need to study the form. We are not focusing on content, only the form. So this is what they try to study, forms of social relationship. This concept will become even clearer when we discuss about symbol. We'll discuss about symbol separately. It will be there in the introduction to Thinkers chapter. And they are saying that sociology is independent. It is an independent discipline. We are not in convergence with other disciplines. We are a discipline in itself. So now we will try to understand what some of the thinkers who subscribe to this particular school, what kind of work they have carried out. So Simal, what is his perspective? What is the work he has done? Now he believes that sociology is a pure and an independent science, and it has a restricted domains, limited scope. It is not talking about everything. He's not saying that sociology should try to study everything. It should be limited. Focused approach should be there. It should understand social relationships. This is important. He says if you look at the different kind of relationships in the society, they will broadly fall into four categories. Okay, four categories. So he's saying there will be competition, there will be subordination, there will be division of labor. So some categories are there. Now we need to understand these relationships, and we will use these relationships to understand other fields of social life. For example, economic, political, religious, moral life, we will understand using these concepts, using the concept of competition, subordination, superordination, division of labor. And we should focus on the forms. We should not get lost in the content. Content varies. It is every relationship will be different, but form remains the same. So form is invariant. Focus on the form. Do not get lost in the content. Inherent assumption here is these forms will be common in diverse situations. They're not changing. So this is the point of view given by Simmel. Now, Alfred Weirkant, he is saying that there exists certain forms of mental and psychic relationship. There are certain forms of mental psychic relationship which is holding people together, which is tying people together, which is knitting the people together. Close-knit relationship. He says we need to study that. And we should not be focusing on historical study of concrete societies, historical studies in the past, how it was, and at present how it is. Don't go for that. Understand this mental psychic relationship which holds people together. Von Weiss, his idea is a little different. He says in society there are certain processes. The processes can be associative. The processes can be disassociative processes. Associative processes means these kind of processes concerning touch, approach, adaptation. Disassociative process means which involves competition and conflict. And there can be processes which can be combinations of associative and dissociative processes. Mixed forward process can also be there. So he's saying if you look at all these combinations, you'll find somewhere around 650 type of human relationships. You need to study this. Okay. So totally 650 forms of human relationships can be derived from these three. Now, Tonis, German sociologist, he says we need to study social relationship. But he says there are two kinds of social relationship. One is on the basis of essential will, and another is on the basis of rational will. So the relationship on the basis of essential will, that is Gemeinschaft relation. And the relationship that is there on the basis of rational will is Gesellschaft. Two kinds of relation. Gemeinschaft relations, they are a kind of instinctive organic tendencies. These are more instrumental in nature. For example, if a man hugs his own child, if a man smiles at his own child when he returns from work, he sees his son or daughter and he gives a smile, he feels happy. So those things are organic. They're happening automatically, instinctive. So these kind of relations are Gemeinschaft relations. But the same man might be working as a receptionist somewhere in some organization. So when he is meeting a new person who might be a possible client, at that point of time also this person is smiling, giving a smile. That kind of relationship is Gesellschaft relation. That is more instrumental, that is more rational because it is part of a duty. You have to make that person feel good, that new client. So this way relations vary. For example, Ferdinand Tönnies, he says that generally in rural area, people you'll find more of Gemeinschaft relations. In urban areas, you'll find more of Gesellschaft relations. Among women, children, you'll find more Gemeinschaft relations. Among businessmen, you'll find more Gesellschaft relations. And he's saying that these Gemeinschaft relations, they're gradually shifting towards Gesellschaft. That means more and more people are now, more and more relations are becoming Gesellschaft relations now. So this is how you can differentiate, in which there is more intimacy, in which there is less intimacy, which is more instrumental, rational in nature. Max Weber, he's saying that we need to study social behavior, but he's saying we need to look at the meanings. You look at the meanings behind these social behavior. So yes, behavior is there, but again, we have to look at the perspective of the actor. So we need to understand social action. We need to interpret or understand it. The actor in the situation might be having certain motives, certain meanings. That is the reason he's behaving in a particular manner. So go to that, study that. So for that, he's again devising certain methodology. Vatsahin methodology is the methodology he advocates for studying that. Don't worry, in the future, okay, over a period of time, you will come across these methodologies. We'll be discussing Max Weber in details. In that, we will discuss what is Vatsahin methodology. What is this Vatsahin method? This is about some of the thinkers who belong to this particular school. Now, there has been some major criticisms of this school of sociology. What are some of the major criticisms? Now, one criticism is it narrows down the scope of sociology. See, you are just focusing on the form. You're not focusing on the content. So that way itself, you're losing out on so much of the subject matter. So you're just focusing on abstract forms. You're neglecting the concrete contents. Now, another dimension, another criticism is it is very difficult to distinguish between the forms of social relation and content. It can be difficult. Another issue here is what we are doing is it is purely imaginary in nature. See, form does not exist anywhere. It is a content which exists. Form is something which is abstract. And your entire school of thought is on the basis of abstract things. So that is also why it is criticized. Another major criticism is by Sorokin. Just look at the statement what he's saying. See, he's saying that for physical objects, for example, physical object like glass. Glass has a particular form. Even if you put honey in it, even if you put water in it, even if you put wine in it, even if you put sugar in it, the form of the glass does not change. But in society, there are different social institutions. If the content of these institutions changes, the social institution can change in itself. So he's saying that we may fill a glass of water, a glass with wine, water, sugar, it will not change its form. But I cannot conceive of a social institution which would not change when its members changes. If members changes, social institutions will change. So how can you differentiate it? So it becomes very difficult. Some indirect relationship with this one. Distinction between social relations and contents is not applicable. Now, another thing, this particular school of thought, it said that they wanted to create sociology as a discipline which is independent. But see one thing, sociology is understanding society, it is trying to study society. But there are other disciplines also which study social relationships, economics, political science, psychology, they are also studying social relationships. So it cannot be independent because these disciplines, they also study sociology, society, you are also studying society. So there is going to be some sort of overlap. And that is what we will observe. For example, the disciplines like historical sociology, social psychology. So there are overlaps as well. And Ginsberg, he has made one more criticism. He say, if you are viewing or if you're trying to create a discipline, you're creating a pure sociology, it is not practical. Because if you look at all the different disciplines in social sciences, they try to borrow from one another. And because of that borrowing, they can also grow. So if you are keeping it pure, that means you're trying to study in isolation, it does not make much sense. It cannot be studied and does not make much sense. It is not at all practical. Social sciences should not be studied in isolation. Rather, it cannot be studied in isolation. So these are a major criticism of the formal school. And now we will look at some of the features of the synthetic school of sociology. Now, this particular discipline, synthetic school of sociology, it wants to create a synthesis of different social sciences. They have this firm belief that different aspects of social life, they are interrelated. And for understanding society as a whole, we need to look at all the angles. We should not restrict ourselves only to one aspect. For example, in society, to understand society, we need to have some basic understanding about politics, we need to have some basic understanding about economics, we need to have some basic understanding about psychology. That way, we can have a better view of society. So create a discipline which will have a synthesis of multiple disciplines. And that is what they are saying. Sociology should be an attempt to study social life as a whole. So if you are studying the social life as a whole, so obviously the scope of the subject will be wide. So that is the reason sociology will have a very wide scope. So this is how they are different from the formal school. They wanted to study a particular thing, but they are saying no. And the reason why they are saying no is they feel that you cannot understand society by studying only one aspect. You have to look at multiple aspects. And in this process, it will automatically become very wide. So social life can only be understood in the entirety. Now, what has been some approaches to understand society through this synthetic school? So there are some thinkers here who subscribe to this particular view. Durkheim is one of those prominent thinkers who talks about it. So according to Durkheim, sociology can be further divided into three streams: social morphology, social physiology, general sociology. Now, social morphology should be concerned with the geographical territorial basis of life. For example, population density, distribution, all these things it should be focusing on. It should focus on the size and quality of population and how this thing is impacting social relationships, social groups. One example that I can give you is, if Durkheim had himself studied this thing, he feels that in a very simple society, the smaller societies, you'll find very simple division of labor. Mostly division of labor is not there. If there is division of labor means what kind of activities is carried out by what kind of individuals. So in simple societies, division of labor is very simple. Okay, and it is all generally on the basis of age or gender. So people who are that working age category, they will be working more. Those who are elder might not be working that much. Children might not be working that much. Also, it will be on the basis of gender. But as the size of the society increases, as the population increases, population density increases, this thing changes. The division of labor becomes very complex. So some people will be handling certain specific activity. Specialized roles come up. In the past societies, let's say primitive societies, the family itself handles everything. It produces things, it also consumes things. But in advanced society, it consumes things. The production is done by someone else. The farmer will be producing, but you are consuming. And in that process also, there will be, in that entire chain, there will be multiple people, the retailer, the wholesaler, all are specialized in their own activities. So as the population is increasing, the kind of division of labor, that will also vary. And if division of labor varies, the solidarity mechanisms, they also change. So this is what he means by social morphology, studying those aspects. Then he says another angle is social physiology. So this basically studies how different institutions would have emerged over a period of time. It understands the genesis and nature of various social institutions. How religion would have come into being, how economic institutions would have come into being, and what is their nature, what is their quality. And third aspect, very important part of sociology should also be arriving at generalizations. You need to formulate general social laws. You have to create laws by which you can predict society or predict behavior. So creating general social laws is also part of sociology under general sociology. This is the philosophical part of society. Philosophical part means you're basically adding to the body of knowledge about society. So the scope of sociology includes all these three things: social morphology, social physiology, and general sociology. Now, this particular school of thought also has some other thinkers. For example, Hobhouse, Karl Mannheim, Ginsberg, and Sorokin. Now, Hobhouse, according to him, sociology is a science which has the whole social life of man as its sphere. Whole social life. And he says that there has to be a relationship between sociology and other social sciences. And this relationship that exists, that has to be there, it should be in the form of mutual exchange and mutual stimulation. They will be exchanging knowledge, they will be exchanging information, and they will also be motivating, they will be stimulating each other. So that all the different social sciences, they are getting benefited from each other. Sociology gets benefited by economics, economics will be benefited by sociology. Similarly, philosophy will get benefited, sociology will get benefited, psychology will get benefited, sociology will get benefited. So that kind of relationship should exist. Now, Karl Mannheim, he basically divides sociology into two parts: systematic and general sociology, first part, and historical sociology. What is systematic general sociology? This particular branch of sociology, it describes the factors of living together. What are the factors which is the reason why people are living together? And historical sociology deals with the historical variety. What kind of societies have emerged over a period of time? What is this variety in this? And what are the actual aspects of society? So over a period of time, the societies have changed. The society that was there in the past, let's say there was previously it was agrarian society, we are moving towards an industrial society. So what is that variation? How this variation is coming into being? So that will be studied under historical sociology. Ginsberg, he also makes an attempt to classify sociology into different areas, so into different specializations. Just like Durkheim did, he had divided into three parts. Ginsberg is also dividing it into four parts. What are the parts? Social morphology, social control, social process, social pathology. Now, social morphology, it studies the quality and quantity of population, social group structures, institutions. That is the morphology part. Social control, it studies both the formal and informal processes of societal control. See, in the society, there are different members. The society tries to influence the behavior of the individuals. So this is called social control. For example, in a society, there can be different people, but because of society, there are certain common values, certain common norms. This restricts or this has a constraining impact on our behavior. We are not going and killing each other. Now, we are not stealing from someone because there is certain value consensus in the society that these things are not correct. Society tells us there will be some value, and indirectly our behavior is getting impacted because of it. It will be society which will say that love each other or love your neighbor. Religion will say it is a part of society. So it basically understands this. Social control basically understands these mechanisms. What are the formal and informal mechanism by which behavior is controlled? Formal mechanism, it can be law, can be a formal mechanism, okay, from the side of the state. Informal can be cultural norms are there which prevent us from behaving in a particular manner, which restricts our behavior. Next thing is social process. It tries to understand the different kind of interaction that exists among members of society. For example, there can be cooperation among people. There can be competition also. There can also be conflict. Social pathology tries to understand what is the reason there are different kinds of social problems. For example, poverty, population, crime, deviance, different social problems. So pathology will understand that. The scope of sociology, according to Ginsburg, is all these things: quantity, quality of population, social groups, social institutions, social structures. What are the ways by which, what are the formal and informal ways by which society controls the behavior of human beings in society? What are the different kind of interactions, competition, cooperation, conflict, and social pathology? What are the different kind of problems in society? Now, Sorokin, he says the scope of sociology should be related to three things. He says it should be a study of relationship between different aspects of a phenomena. It should be a study of relationship between social and the non-social. It should be a study of general features of social phenomena. So this way, Sorokin defines it. So these are some of the thinkers who belong to the synthetic school. They define the scope of sociology. Yeah, so this is about the formal school and the synthetic school. And so if you look at it right now, there's almost a consensus now that sociology, it studies certain areas. It studies social institutions, it studies social relationships, it studies social process. And again, there is also more or less consensus, general consensus about the perspective of society. What are the assumptions that are taken? There is more or less a consensus on the methodology, what kind of methodology will be taken for research. And concepts like stratification, pathology, they have also become part of the scope of sociology. Now, if you look at it, if you want to summarize, okay, so there is more or less a general consensus that sociology tries to analyze various institutions in society. For example, what is the kind of government, what is the education system, what is the type of family, what are the different religious institutions. So it understands these institutions, it tries to understand these institutions and these institutions, associations, and social groups, what kind of social groups are present, and how these things have formed as a result of social relationships. There's also this consensus that the different parts of society, they're linked together, and these linkages need to be studied. The functional school studies that, the Marxist schools also gives importance to it. Okay, society divided into parts, what are the parts of society, how they're linked together. So social structure needs to be given importance because they're linked together in a particular pattern. This pattern is called the social structure. So that is also given importance. It also tries to study the factors which can contribute to stability and social change. What factors can lead to stability and social change? For example, education can lead to social change. Technology can lead to social change. Serendipity can also take to social change. Some chance happening, it can lead to social change. Sometimes some misfortune can also lead to social change. Social movements, organized mechanisms, they can also lead to social change. Law can be used to bring about social change. So they understand these factors. They're also trying to find out the trends, how change is taking place. Is there any pattern? And in case there is a change, what is going to be the aftermath? So indirectly, almost nothing social is alien to the field of sociology. But yes, sociology does not claim that it is all inclusive and it is a science which can cover everything. That is not there. It has also restricted itself to certain methods, certain ways by which study takes place. But yes, it has a very wide scope, starting from interaction between individuals to national issues to international issues. So this is about the scope of sociology. What we will do in the next session is we will try to understand how sociology and other disciplines, they have some differences. How, for example, how sociology can be different from economics, can be different from politics, from psychology, political sciences, from philosophy. These things we'll study in the next session. So it will lead to further more clarity. Thank you.